So it's my birthday. Anyone with a December birthday will tell you, we all know that Christmas takes precedence, which is why I'm here with the 5th and final pattern of my Christmas series. You would have already been introduced to the present, the mouse, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and Puppy who got stuck in a stocking. So this week I'm going to show you how to use an unexpected household item to create a little dove Christmas tree ornament. All right, let's get into it. So what you're going to need for this particular pattern is, so I'm using this thin crochet thread. This particular one is Milford Soft. It's a 3-ply. There we go, so that's compared with 8-ply, so you can see it's about half the width. I've also used the 4-ply cotton for this particular pattern and it turns out really cute as well. Basically, we are just going to be using cotton thread in either a 3-ply or a 4-ply, so we'll be needing some of that. You'll be needing your 3.5mm hook. Now you can feel free to size down. 3.5mm hook with this particular thread weight produces a little bird about this size. Using a smaller hook will produce a smaller result. You'll also need a pair of 5mm safety eyes, some scissors, your pins and needles, some stuffing, and our secret ingredient today is actually hairspray. And we're going to use that to stiffen the wings and tail of the birds to help them hold their position. Now you can use starch for this, you can use watered down PVA glue for this. I'm using hairspray because first of all, I have it in my house, and second of all, it dries super fast. Rather than having to wait overnight for something to dry and set in position, this stuff dries in like half an hour. So I'll be using some extra stronghold, though I can also vouch for just stronghold hairspray. But regular strength doesn't have quite as much staying power. But give it a go if that's what you've got on hand, because that's kind of the name of this game. So in pairing with that hairspray, I am also going to be using a styrofoam ball. Now you can just use a piece of baking paper or a pin-up board as well. For that, I'm going to use a styrofoam ball to set my wings in a slightly curved position, because again, I happen to have one on hand. All right, so as per usual, I'm just going to sketch up the pieces we're going to need for this particular project. Okay, so the first piece we'll be making is a little tail. So for the tail, we start at the base and then we work up a solid panel up to about this point here. We then work a couple of rows to form the feathers. So second of all, we'll be doing the wings. Now we're doing the wings and tail first because we will give them time to dry while we make the body. So that's why we do it in this order. So for the wings, we again start at the base and we work up a little magic ring. And then working around part of the magic ring, so not the whole way around, but just part of the magic ring, we start working up the feathers for each of the little wings. We are then going to hairspray those pieces and put them aside to dry. And then while they do that, we'll be making part 3, which is our little bird body. And that is constructed all in one piece, and we start actually at the top of the head and we just sort of work our way down towards the butt. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so for the tail, we're going to start by chaining 2. We are then going to turn and put 5 single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So 5 stitches all in that same little stitch. Just like that. So you see they form a little ring. I'm not going to slip stitch over to here. Instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 2 and then I'm going to turn and we're going to put a double crochet into each of those 5 stitches. So that's 5 double crochet the whole way around. So that's 5. So you can see we're already starting to work up a little bit of a wedge shape because the tail of our starting chain is sort of sticking out all alone and naked on that side. And meanwhile, we've got this sort of nice little fan shape forming. So next we're going to chain 1 and turn. And then we're going to work an increase in this first stitch. Then 3 single crochet across. And an increase in the last stitch. So that works up most of the solid section of the tail. So what we're going to do is just work up a little bit of a frill and then we'll start working on the larger feathers. So to do that, we're going to chain 5. We're going to turn the whole piece. So you can see these 5 chains are originating in this stitch here. We're going to skip the next one and we're going to slip stitch in the one after that. We're then going to chain 5 again. We're going to skip one, and we're going to slip stitch in the next one. And then we're going to chain 5 a third time. And then skip one and slip stitch in the final stitch in that row. So you see there we've worked up just a tiny little ruffle. So we'll be working on the larger feathers of the tail now. So we're going to chain 18. You can do these fairly tightly. We're never going to try and single crochet sort of into these stitches, only ever around them. So pull them tight so there's no gaps. So it's quite a long chain there. We're going to turn our piece and then we're going to slip stitch into the same stitch we slip stitched in for the little ruffles. See the little join there? We're going to slip stitch around the previous row's slip stitch. Just like that. Okay, I'm going to turn the piece now. And that feather we just constructed, I'm going to put 4 single crochet up that chain. So insert your hook under that loop and just work your stitches the same way you would in any other situation. We're just going to work them around the chain. So that's 2, and then we need 3 and 4. So you see that that sort of thickened that chain bit there. We've still got most of a feather there. So I'm going to now chain 12 and we're going to make the middle feather. So with that 12, once again going to turn and slip stitch again in the same stitch we slip stitched in the previous row. I'm once again going to turn the piece so you can see that now I'm sort of holding the longer feathers that we're making in my left hand, and we're going to work 4 single crochet up that chain again. Just like that. So now we just need to form the final stitch. So to do that we're going to chain 12 again. Just like that. Turn your piece and we will be slip stitching in that final stitch in the row again. Just like that. So you can see that we've worked up the 3 cute little feathers for the tail. So now we are turning our piece so that we'll be working up the side of the feather first, not down the base. So I'm going to work 5 single crochet up the side of the feather. Slide the stitches back to where they belong if they are sort of taking up too much of your space. And then across the top, to create sort of a nice little fan effect, I'll be working a half double crochet, then 4 double crochet, and then another half double crochet, just like that. So to finish off that feather, I am now going to do a slip stitch around the join between the 2 feathers. So what I mean by that is I'm going to insert my hook around the stem that's between the 2, sort of yarn under and complete the slip stitch. So I'm then going to complete the half double crochet, 4 double crochet, and then a half double crochet across the middle of the next feather. And then slip stitch around that sort of joining piece again. And then on this final feather, we're going to half double crochet, 4 double crochet, half double crochet again, and then we're going to put 5 single crochet down the side. So that is our 3 large feathers complete. We just now need to finish off the base. So we're going to do that by working 4 single crochet down this side here. We're going to put a single crochet, a chain 2 and a single crochet in the top section there, and then we're going to work 4 single crochet up the other side until we meet our starting stitch, where we will slip stitch and finish off. So I'm back to where I started going around the feathers, and I'm just going to slip stitch in here and finish off leaving a little bit of a tail so that you can sort of weave that through if you want, or I'm just going to snip mine off after spraying it down because that stops it unraveling. So there is our tail, and that is the end of part 1. Okay, with part 1 done, we're now going to move on to part 2 and make some little wings. So for the wings, we start off with a magic ring and we put 12 single crochet into it. And then just going to slip stitch to close the loop, just like that. So we've got our little ring. Okay, so for the first row of feathers, I'm going to chain 9. So we're then going to skip the next stitch and we're going to double crochet into the one after that. Like so. And then to make the next 2 feathers, we'll be chaining 7, skipping 1, and then double crocheting into the one after. Okay, so that is our first row of wing feathers. And we're basically going to repeat that again. It's just instead of double crocheting into the base magic ring, we'll be double crocheting around the post of the double crochets from the previous round. So that is our chain 9, and now the time has come to double crochet, and I'm going to insert my hook around the post and work my double crochet like so. Then I'm going to continue on and make the other 2 feathers. Okay, so that is round 2 of the feathers done. It might be looking a little loose and wobbly for you at the moment, but trust me, it comes good. So now we are going to work our 3rd row of feathers in there now, and these ones here are slightly larger. So we're going to start with a chain 12, and then we're going to work our double crochets the same way we did around the previous rows. So the first feather is a chain 12, the next 2 are chain 9s. So just in case it wasn't clear as I was working through those rows, I'll just take my hook out here. We have 3 rows of feathers here, which we started by working up a magic ring. We chained 9, and then we did a double crochet, chained 7, did a double crochet, and then chained 7, did a double crochet. We then chained 9 again, and we turned the piece. We did our double crochet around the post, chained some more, double crocheted around the post, then we chained some more, and we did a double crochet just into the chain loop itself. So that's where that final double crochet gets attached. And then you can then sort of slide it into position so it forms the right shape. It should be fairly sort of close to the edge of that loop. So then for the final row of feathers, we chained, double crocheted around the post, chained, double crocheted around the post, final row of chains, and then double crocheted again just into the chain loop. So now we're going to just add a frill similar to what we did for the tail. So to do that, we are going to turn and work 3 single crochet up that final chain that we just completed. There we go, that gets us started. So now what we're going to be doing is just like for the tail, we'll be doing a half double crochet, 4 double crochet, and then a half double crochet, and then slip stitching around the post. We're going to repeat that twice, and then we'll be doing something slightly different for the final feather. Okay, so we've just slip stitched around the post for that second feather, and now we're going to work again, half double crochet, 4 double crochet, and then a half double crochet into this feather, and then we're going to start working around our edge. Okay, so down this edge here, we're going to put 3 single crochet. And you'll see we've got this gap for the middle feather. We're going to put 2 single crochet in that little gap. That's down the double crochet that we used to join the little feather on. And then we've got this little gap for the first row of feathers, and we're going to put 2 single crochet in there as well. So that makes for 7 single crochet down that side in total. So we've now reached the magic ring, and what we're going to do is we're going to work 5 slip stitches around. Just like that. So now we just have this tiny little bit on the side to work back up, so we're going to put 2 single crochet into the side of each of these feathers. We're then going to identify the first single crochet that we did around our chain lines, and we are just going to slip stitch into it. Just like that, and finish off leaving a decent sized tail so that you can now weave that in. So there we are. It might look like a little wibbly wobbly mess at the moment, but we are going to fix that up. So at this point, you should weave in all of your tails so that they originate back to base. Make sure you're happy with the positioning of your tails, because once we spray these, you will not be able to move those tails around anymore. Everything becomes a little bit too stiff. All right, so we've got one little wing, and you just need to make another one just like it. Just like that. So now we have these 3 pieces. The next thing we need to do is sort of pin them down, spray them, and start them setting in place. So I'm going to be using a styrofoam ball to help me sort of dry these in the correct position. You can use anything you've used previously for blocking should work with these. So any sort of like bulletin board, I'm using a piece of styrofoam here. Or if you really don't have any of those things, you can try using just a sheet of baking paper. Make sure that you position your little loops as best as you can if you are working on a flat surface, because otherwise you might end up with sort of a little bit of a scrunched final product. All right, so I'm going to start by pinning the tail. So I'm going to pin through that magic ring. Then I'm going to pin each of these side feathers and make sure to sort of stretch them out nicely so that it looks nice and even and each of those feathers is properly extended. Then we're going to stretch the middle feather out slightly as well. Just make sure that you're really happy with sort of the form that that is taking. If it looks warped now, it'll look warped later. So I don't know how easily you can see that on the white styrofoam ball, but that is the tail done. So next I'm going to work the wings. So you should identify now which side up yours are going to be. So you can see on mine, I have the posts all happening on the same side. That's going to be sort of the top of my wing. You can sort of play it by ear, but those ones look fairly evenly matched that way up. So I'm going to just make sure that because I'm working with a rounded surface that they curve the same way up. So for pinning the wings, again, I'm going to start in the middle. That magic ring. Then I'm going to extend each of these feathers out nice and far. And then for each of these little feathers, I'm not pinning through, I'm just sort of positioning them so that they are curved upwards, and I'm holding them in place, not with a pin through them, but with a pin under them. And we do that for both rows of internal feathers. So see how many pins I used? Now I'm going to do the other one on the other side. And make sure that you've stretched your wings out to the same size is also an important sort of note here. So there we go, all 3 pieces are pinned. I'm now going to just take this into a slightly better ventilated area so I don't suffocate, and I'm going to spray these down really, really well. So I'm going to hold it sort of no more than 10 centimeters away, and we're really just going to soak every part of the cotton with the hairspray. Okay, so while that dries, I'm just going to pop it to one side. You'll see I've got a bowl here, and I'm going to show you how to make the body. Okay, so we finished part 1, we finished part 2, and they have been set aside to dry at the moment. So we're going to just make part 3, which is our little body. So as mentioned, the body is worked from the top of the head down. A couple of rows in, we do build in the little beak. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a magic ring of 6. We are going to work up to 18 single crochet around, and then I will stop and I will show you how to build in the little beak. Okay, so we've worked up the little dome of the head, and it's now time for us to do the beak. So for the little beak, you'll note that it's only a very sort of tiny little point poking out. And the way we do that is, in the next stitch, what we're going to do is put a single crochet. We are then going to chain 3. So those are 3 very tight little chains. And then we're going to put a single crochet in that same stitch. So it's basically an increase with a chain between. We're then going to put 17 single crochet around the edge to finish off the row. Just like that. So we are back where we started. What we're going to do for the next round is the first stitch we're going to do is a decrease. Basically those 2 stitches we put in the increase, we are now decreasing back down to 1, just like that. And there is our little beak sticking out. And then 17 single crochet around to finish off that round again. So there's your little beak, there's the top of your head. So the rest of this bird works up fairly standard. There's no back post, front post, short rows. It's all just basic single crochet with some increases and some decreases. And so we're going to just keep working that up now. And then we'll stop a couple of rows out from the end to stuff and position the eyes. Okay, so we have narrowed our opening down to 12 stitches, and at this point we're going to just stop and we're going to position the eyes. So here we have sort of a flat cross section. You can see we've got the beak there, and so from the beak in the same row we're going to count 1, 2, 3, and then the eyeball should go in the 4th stitch. Okay, so once our eyes are in, we're just going to stuff the head and body quite firmly. Right, so there we are, and now we are just going to finish closing off this little gap. So I finished off, and now I'm just weaving the end around to pull tight and close that last remaining little gap. So there is your cute little marshmallow peep. There is your part 3. Now you can stitch on some little pink cheeks if you'd like to at this point. Just stitch them on just behind the eyes. But for now, I'm going to pull over my wings and tail, and we're just going to check if they're dry. And they are. So I'm just going to check how rigid they are to see if they need a second coat. You know what? That's pretty good already. So the extra strength seems to only need one coat. So I'm just going to harvest the other two. So there are our finished pieces. So I left those to dry for roughly an hour, but you should just check on yours when you're finished your little body. And if they are still damp, leave them for a little bit longer. If they are still kind of bendy or floppy when you take them off, turn them over and give the other side a spray and let them set again. So, right, sorry about the camera angle there. Okay, so now we have all of our pieces. You'll see we've got these tails, and because they've been sprayed as well, they're also quite stiff. So what we're just going to do is we're going to trim those off fairly closely. Because they've been sprayed, they shouldn't unravel any further than they currently are. So you don't need to worry so much about weaving them in. And because they're stiff, you really can't tuck them into the body the way you normally would. Okay, so now they are trimmed. The first piece we're going to pin on to our little body here is the tail. Now, because I've done mine on a styrofoam ball, they all have a slight curve to them, so the tail is going to be bending downwards. And we're just going to find the little point at the back of the body. You'll notice that her head is sort of tilting to one side. The little point at the back of the body, and then you just pin that tail in place over the top. Just like that. So that's where her little tail is going to go. And then with the wings, again, because of the curve, I'm going to make sure that they curve upwards, and I'm going to pin them in place there. So there we are, we've pinned those in place there. Just make sure that you're happy with the way that she looks from all sides. If she's hanging from the tree, you're going to sort of see her sort of spin a little bit, so you're going to make sure that she doesn't look funny from one of the angles. So then we're just going to take a little bit of our white thread, and we're going to sew first the tail and then the two wings into place. So I've sewn on both wings and the tail, and I've added a little loop just so that we can hang her from the tree. Right, so there is your little dove. So that's it for this week's video. I hope you're going to have a go at making a couple of these, because they work up really, really quickly. They only take a couple of hours each, including drying time, and they look so pretty on the tree. Don't forget to hit like if you enjoyed watching me make this little dove, and if you're going to try making one for yourself. And while you're at it, the subscribe button is right there. It's the last official pattern in this series, so leave a comment to tell me which one was your favorite. The written version of the pattern will be available on my Etsy and to my patrons, and I will leave a link to both down below. So next week's video is falling on Christmas Eve, so it's going to be something a little bit different, but there is still a pattern component to it, and you will see what I mean next week. Other than that, happy birthday to all the other December babies. I'm so sorry that this month is never about us. But that's it for today. Okay, bye.